In this video, let's take a look at how to set up configurations for our published file in Project Properties. We'll start by selecting Project and then Project Properties. In the Viewlet Profile section here of Project Properties, we can add information for the Viewlet, authoring information, as well as company information. You can put in as many details as you want or as few as you want. It's up to you. We'll go ahead and fill in some of the information. So for example, in the title bar that appears for this particular Viewlet, we'll give this a name. We'll call this Project Paint Basics. Then let's go ahead and add some authoring information. We'll put in the author's name. And let's upload a photo of the author here. Depending upon your skin, the author picture will also be included on the Viewlet when it's played back. And then we can put in some company information. Again, you can put in as much detail or as little detail as you want. It's up to you. So we'll call this one, that's the department, the website. And you can opt to put in a company logo based upon your needs. We'll go ahead and upload one. Now, for image quality for your published file, just read through each of these descriptions and use what works best for you. You also have the ability to configure a custom image quality for your published file based upon what you need for slide element compression for balloons and notes, images sitting on top of your slides, your background frame images, as well as your video layers. Once you go ahead and set these, you can go ahead and then click OK. Then for the sound quality, same thing. Choose a sound quality for the published file. So high quality works well for most Viewlets, but maybe you need a higher quality such as CD quality. You also can go ahead and opt to use stereo sound for the compressed or the published file as needed. In Viewlet Sounds, you have additional options for setting sounds for cursor click movements, for keyboard simulation for the typing. And if you want, you can also go ahead and embed a soundtrack. So let's see what we have here. In the sound dialog, you can go ahead and record a soundtrack at this point, or you can go ahead and put in one that you need for yourself. So we're going to actually cancel out of this. But once you embed a soundtrack, it will be used as the background sound for your entire Viewlet project. If the soundtrack is not as long as the duration of the entire Viewlet project itself, you can opt to loop it at the end and also have it pause during important zones and questions. And you can also set the volume for the soundtrack that plays in the background right here. You can set up timing elements for your project, for your published file as well. Let's say, for example, you have the reading speed set at a certain level, but some of your balloons and notes have text that falls below the minimum reading speed. Well, you don't want these balloons and notes just to flash by, so maybe you want to opt to have the minimum amount of time a balloon or a note will display to the viewer be at least 2.5 seconds. And then you can choose also options for cursor speed and other timing elements. In the Viewlet options, you have the ability in the General tab to configure the initial display size, as well as other options. You also have the ability to set up now a start button. This start button will actually be set on top of the Viewlet and it will pause on playback if you enable this feature. You can opt to change the style just to an arrow, as you see over here in the preview, or a circled arrow. You can set up the scale based upon the size of the slide as to how big the particular start button will be. And you'll preview it over here. And again, you can play around with these options on your own, but you can also set up colors and drop shadow options. In the extra section, you have the preloader options so that if you have a big Viewlet, maybe you want to have a waiting animation display, and you can configure it here. For example, maybe you want to wait for a percentage of the slides to stream before the Viewlet actually will load, but you want to have a waiting animation playing. You can also add some animated extras to the front and back of your Viewlet, and you can also add a splash image that will display while the Viewlet's being initialized. You can enable this and upload your own, or you can just have one display based upon the skin. And then in the advanced section of Viewlet options, choose your frame rate. 30 is a good benchmark, and then go through and decide if you want to use any of these other options. If your Viewlet has question slides, you can go through here and make up some settings. For example, if you want to have some login options to require the viewer to log in, giving their username, they'll see a login panel. You can also apply passwords so that you can pass out the Viewlet and only those that have the password could log in. And you also have scoring options that you can set up here that will be passed along to, let's say, like SCORM files for pass-fail percentages and so on. Then you can set options for scoring. These are global features that are applied to your question slides. This is actually a topic for another video, as well as feedback message objects where you have default text. That's a topic for another video as well. But you can also set time limits as well as advanced options for your project. Now, in the language section, by default, your authoring application will localize your Viewlet elements based upon your operating system. So if you want to change this for your particular Viewlet, you can go ahead and opt to choose a different language, and then you can go through each of these tabs based upon what the elements are and change out the values as needed. And then for the Viewlet skin, we now have it organized where you can choose a Viewlet skin, and based upon the skin that you choose, for example, if we use one of these legacy skins, you'll have additional tab options to use for the preview, for general settings, for the sidebar or the table of contents, as well as the player bar. Now again, depending upon the skin, that will determine what options you have available here. So for example, if we choose the Qarbon skin, you'll see we have a few more configuration options here, as well as in the general tab for the sidebar. And then we have another skin called the complex skin, which will actually give us a lot more branding features that we can have enabled and options for playback. This particular one, the complex Viewlet skin, is a topic for a different video. For now, we'll just go ahead and choose a skin and keep the defaults applied. For the most part in the HTML frame, the standard Q frame works fine for most Viewlets, so you don't really need to change that. And then in the JavaScript, if you're an advanced user, can add some JavaScripting to be included with your published file as needed. But for the most part, you don't need to do anything here. Now, once you make all of your settings here in each of the different sections, you can go ahead and save these as the default properties in your project properties for this project as needed. Then go ahead and click OK, and finally save your file. The next step would be to either preview the results in a browser prior to publishing it, or publishing the file itself. And again, those would be topics for different videos. This particular one just focused on project property settings. So that's it for this topic. If you have any questions on any of Qarbon's products and services, please visit us online at www.qarbon.com. Happy Viewleting!